All right, everyone, welcome back to another week. And today, the question is it better to be good or to be bad? Or rather, the question is going to be, is it better to have the potential for good or the potential for bad? Well, it's never good to be bad. Well, the second way I phrased the question was better. All right, so everyone has challenges, and sometimes, as a teacher, you got good kids, you got lousy kids, and some kids that can't help themselves. Right? Some kids go to school, they know to sit down, everything's easy, and some kids, like Barbara can testify to as well, that they just can't help themselves, and you might say, hey, it's not the kid's fault. What do you want? The kids has spilkers, or the kids, bad genes, right?
They're not wearing Levi's.
Not wearing Levi's, right? Or remember. Or to date ourselves, Jordash.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I don't know how many people watching this video are going to know about Jordash, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, what would you advise? That's the question, to a person going through challenges, or a person that has this propensity for poor behavior. And the reason, obviously, why we bring this up is because this week, we're introduced to one of the templates of a person with bad behavior, and that person is named Esau. You thought I was going to say Ira for a second, but no. Esau. This week's Torah portion, we're introduced to our patriarch Yaakov and his twin brother Esau. I was going to say arch nemesis, right? But no.
They were twins.
They were twins.
Oh,
yes.
Who came out first?
Esau. Esau was the older son, and that's why we have the whole story of
the birthright.
Right? So first Esau sells it for a meal, and then Yaakov. But Esau's parents, Yitzchak and Rivka, don't know, and Yaakov has to go about a whole way of getting the blessings. But that topic is not for tonight's class. All right. So this course is a Rashi course. So before we start, we're going to do 3 rules of Rashi that you have to keep in mind for tonight. Number 2, whenever there's number 1. Sorry, the rules are on page 76. Rule number 1 is whenever there's a discrepancy between 2 texts, Rashi always comments on the second text, which makes sense, because when you read the first one, you don't have a problem. It's only when you read the second text, which seems to conflict with the first one, then that's when Rashi comments. Rule number 2, there are more than 3 rules, but tonight we're going to... rule number 2, Rashi only bothers with the grammar if it deals with with understanding. Keeping in mind that Rashi came for the understanding of a child. So only when the grammatical not editing, because Rashi didn't change the text, but only when the grammatical commenting makes a difference to understanding the words to explain it. That's when Rashi chimes in, and as always, Rashi always has a lesson from it. Okay, so in this week's parsha, Yitzchak marries Rivka. Oh, Yitzchak married Rivka. Last week's parsha. In this week's parsha, we read how Rivka, like so many of our matriarchs, were barren. In fact, there's even a medrash that says all our matriarchs, all the births were miraculous. They all couldn't have children. Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, they all had problems.
Reason?
Yes, because who they're bringing into the world. They changed the world. It's again, let's not get into. Okay. But the Kabbalah and Medrash talk very, very interesting, because the power for good was so great. So it's physically they couldn't do it. So Rivka couldn't have children. Yitzchak and Rivka both pray. They daven to Hashem, and Yitzchak's prayer hints to the Torah. Yitzchak's prayers were answered, not Rivka's, and Mazel Tov, Rivka gives birth, and what did you know it? Not only does she have children, not only does she have children, Rivka gives birth to twins. It says here, text 1, page 77, and the days to give birth were completed, and behold, they were twins. Okay, comes Rashi, text number 2, and Rashi says, by the way, you should know, in the future we have another story of twins. What happens? The Parshas Vayeshev, without getting into that whole story now, Parshas Vayeshev, Yehuda marries a woman, can't remember her name, and she has, and they have 3 sons, Oinon, and Shelah. Er marries Tamar, and then God doesn't approve of his intimate bedroom behavior, so God kills Er, and then Yehuda encourages his second son Oinon to practice levirate marriage. Our forefathers practiced the Torah before the giving of the Torah. Oinon also doesn't behave. Okay, this is not a class for now. I don't want to get sidetracked. And God kills him too. So Yehuda is afraid that God's just killing all his boys, or Tamar is putting something, in the soup,
Drinking water.
in the drinking water. It was that city in Michigan that had the problem with the water, right?
Can't remember.
Right.
Yes.
So Yehuda tells Tamar, "You go home. Wait till my older son Shelah, my youngest son, Shelah is older, and then you can marry him." Yehuda had no intention of allowing Shelah to marry Tamar because he didn't want to lose all of his kids. That's not what God wanted. Anyway, God orchestrates the events. Again, if you want to know, you can jump ahead for a few weeks. The Yehuda and Tamar actually hook up, and Tamar conceives, and she has twins. So this Rashi in Parshat Toldot in chapter 25 is referencing the difference in text between chapter 25 and chapter 38. So if you look on page 77, you'll be able to compare and contrast the two texts. And Rashi says it over here. It says by Rivka in chapter 25, it says, and her days were completed. But regarding Tamar in chapter 38, it says, and it came time for her to give birth. Why? Because she didn't carry to full term. She gave birth in the 7th month. Rashi further points out, this is on page 78, another difference between the twins, the two sets of twins, by Yaakov and Esau. It has the word Simon. The Hebrew word for twins is Tomim or Te'umim, Taf Aleph Vav Mem Yud. Now the Aleph in Hebrew is kind of a silent letter. It's not absolutely necessary. So Rashi says, by Rivka, it says Tomim without the Aleph. By Tamar, it says it with the Aleph. The word is written in full, it's called. Why? Because Rivka gave birth to one tzaddik, one righteous person, Yaakov, and one wicked person, Esau. And Tamar gave birth to 2 righteous people, Peretz and Zerach. Okay? So far, so good? All right. So, keeping in mind the questions, the rules that we said in the beginning, that Rashi, when there's a difference in text, makes a comment on the second time the text appears, because why would you make a comment on the first time? It's not a problem. It's only the second time where there's a difference in text that the reader say, hey, why there's a difference? So here comes an obvious question. Why does Rashi comment about the difference in text, right? The one that says they fill the days, and the other one, it was a complete pregnancy. One, it just says it was a time to give birth. And one, the word twins is full. The other one, the word twins, the letter is missing. Why are you doing it now? This is the first time we have the concept of twins in the Torah. I have no idea how it's supposed to be, right? So if you don't know, why is Rashi introducing the problem? And this is the question the Rebbe asks in text number 3. The Rebbe says, text number 3, he says, we already explained many times with the discrepancy, Rashi's method to resolve it the second time, the second passage. So it raises the question, why does Rashi address the discrepancy here? Number 1. Number 2, going back to the beginning, we introduced the rules of Rashi for this class. We said Rashi only points out a grammatical difference when it's important to understanding the text. Remember, keeping in mind that Rashi wrote his commentary for the young child. So if that's the case, the word twins, Do we really care in the translation of the word with the aleph, without the aleph? Doesn't really make a difference. So why is Rashi commenting? Remember, in other classes we discussed that Rashi doesn't get into Medrash and Rashi doesn't get into all these different things. Why is Rashi telling us something that we don't know, that we don't need, seemingly we don't need to know? Let's look at text number 4, which is the Rebbe asked this question. He says, we already explained many times, and several super commentaries to Rashi agree that Rashi does not ordinarily address defective spellings unless they impact the text plain meaning. So this raises the question: what's the difficulty in the words of Rashi? So remember in other classes that Rashi usually is asking the question that adults miss. Right? It talks about kids, and so adults ask more complicated questions, but they miss the simple question right in front of them. You know, this is not the first birth recorded in the Torah, right? Adam and Chava. Right? They conceived and gave birth to Cain and Hevel and everything else. Did the Torah tell us previously how many months Chava was when she gave birth to Shes, or Noach was, Avram? No. Why do I care? So if you're reading, it says she conceived. And why doesn't it say, and she conceived and gave birth, whatever, and it was 2 sons, but I don't know. What's with this giving me, when the baby is born, you ask how big the baby was, how heavy, whatever it is, boy, girl, right? I don't know, maybe girls ask this question, I don't know. How many weeks, right? I have 10 fingers, 10 toes. How many weeks did they carry the baby? Who cares? I don't know, the baby's healthy, it's right there. Right?
People do ask if the baby's premature or not.
Yeah. Fine, the baby preemie, but it doesn't seem like, I don't know, none of my, what a week here, how long Rivka held the baby. So Rashi, so the Rebbe answers like this. Rashi is coming to tell us, he's coming to compare and to contrast that you should know, he's trying to set you up now. The reason why the Torah tells us about Rivka's pregnancy here is to compare it to the other set of twins that's going to be born, and you're going to read about it in a few weeks. Mm-hmm. So you could compare and contrast. That by Rivka, it says, look at text number 5. I think I'm back. By Rivka, it says, and her days were completed. And we wouldn't know days were completed. What would that mean? By the fact that by Tamar it says, and it was the time to give birth, and not her days were completed, we could say, oh, Rivka was born full. Rivka gave birth full term, and Tamar and Tamar did not. That means the Torah wants us to look at the 2 sets of twins. There's something to the Torah is telling us, not just giving us information for no reason. The Torah wants us to compare the 2. Not that we should just know. Oh, by the way, that Rivka gave birth 9 months and Tamar gave birth 7 months. The question is why? Why did the Torah want me to know? Thank you, I know that, but why? What's the what's the important message? So the Rebbe continues in his talk, and he says like this. He says what do we want to compare? The mothers or the offspring? The offspring. The answer is the offspring. Rivka, a righteous woman. Tamar, a righteous woman. So by Rivka, who was born Yaakov a tzaddik, and Esau a rasha. By Tamar, who was born Peretz and Zerach. Peretz is the father of Mashiach, by the way, because the lineage goes from Yehuda Peretz, right? They were both tzaddikim. So the Torah is leading you into that idea. So compare and contrast, right? One gave birth full term, one gave birth early, because one had twins and it's missing of an aleph because one of the twins weren't righteous. One has full because both boys were righteous. This is what the Rebbe is explaining in text number 6. Now the question is, why did Tamar give birth early?
Okay, Tamar gave birth to two tzaddiks.
Yeah, two tzaddikim.
Two tzaddikim.
Why did Tamar give birth early? So if you look at text number 7, very interesting. This is the Toldot from the 16th and 17th century, and he says the reason why Tamar gave birth early is because Hashem wants to bring righteous people into the world as fast as possible. Rivka was carrying Esau. All right, let him cook a little bit longer. You know what I'm saying? There's no rush to deliver bad news. But because Tamar was carrying two tzaddikim, God wants to bring them into the world a little faster. That is text number 7. So now that brings a whole bunch of. We're going to get into the questions in a second. But now we answered all of Rashi's questions. Okay, before we get into the other questions, let's make sure the questions that Rashi asked were answered. The one question was, why does Rashi raise the discrepancy now? It should be later. So the answer is Rashi's not raising a discrepancy. Rashi's telling us that to compare and to contrast, and the same thing with the grammatical error. It's not error. The grammatical difference is it does helps us to understand why. The reason why the word twins is written without of aleph is because Esau is a Russian. Okay, now let's get into some questions. So questions should be bothering you. Number 1, why are we painting Rivka, the full-term pregnancy, as a negative thing? It's bad. You think a full-term pregnancy would be a nice thing, right? And also, how is it fair to Rivka that she had to carry Esau the whole time? You would think, for Rivka's sake, it's interesting in this week's Parsha. We also find in Rivka complaining. You remember when Hashem tells Chava, childbirth is going to be hard? There's no recording of any woman complaining. Listen, I'm sure they did. Rivka complains. It says here she davened all these years to get pregnant, and then she gets pregnant, and then she starts complaining. I tell you can never make a woman happy.
You try carrying 2 full-term twins. Try that. Try that.
Anyway, no. So why was she complaining? So the Medrash, actually Rashi, is not discussed in this class, but Rashi asked this question. It's vodka. It's water. Yes. Rashi asked this question. Rashi quotes the Medrash. This is because it says when she would walk by. We're actually going to quote this in text number 8. Rashi says when she would walk by a house of godly worship, Yaakov would kick. When she walked by a house of idolatry, Esau would kick. So he says, I have a confused kid. Right? If your kid is one thing, whatever it is, good or bad, at least you can talk to them, right? But if your kid is mixed up, that's the worst thing. There's no one to talk to because they're not facing in either direction. But Rivka had to suffer a full term with Esau. Now, another thing that should bother you. Cyril always says, out of all the biblical stories, out of all the biblical couples, put it that way, the couple she likes the most is Yitzchak and Rivka. Why? Avraham married Sarah, then he marries Hagar, and he kicks her out. He has kids with this one. Yaakov has 4 wives, right? And Elkanah has 2 wives. Not many people have a marriage like Yitzchak and Rivka. Husband, wife, live happily ever after, and that's it. They were call them, quote unquote, a normal biblical couple, right? They practice monogamy. Are you guys familiar with the story of Yehuda and Tamar? Remember I said in the beginning they hook up? It's a crazy story how they hook up, but I'll tell you the story very quickly. Basically, before the giving of the Torah, levirate marriage wasn't only practiced by the brothers, could also be practiced by the father-in-law. So when Tamar saw that Yehuda had no intent of giving Shelah over to her, so she got dressed up like a woman of ill repute. She sat in the
disguised herself.
Right, she sat in the side of the road. Yehuda approached her. Now you can quote me Medrash, Kabbalah, Gemara, as they say from Hein bis morgen, today till tomorrow. It's a shady story, all right. However you want to talk about. Now I can tell you, Kabbalah talks about why such great neshamas have to come about through. Fine, but on the surface, it smacks of immodesty, right? Mm-hmm. Imagine a guy comes home, he sees a hooker on the side of the road. Oh look, I saw with godly vision, that I was supposed to be with her. Yeah, tell it to the judge, okay? So, listen, obviously they're great tzaddikim and they know what they're doing. But you're trying to tell me that Rivka and Yitzchak, who had this normal marriage, holy marriage, one of the kids was wicked. Yehuda and Tamar, who had this, the whole argument, by the way, was it a one-night stand or did they get married? But let's take the negative. Let's say it was a one-night stand, right? And they have these two big tzaddikim, right? How does that make sense? It doesn't seem to make sense.
Doesn't seem fair.
Goes against the saying two wrongs don't make a right, but I guess in this case it did.
Right?
They two tzaddikim.
They're two tzaddikim. So obviously there's more going on that we got to understand. So as we said before, the famous Medrash, that in the womb there was a big fight that Yaakov wanted to get out, but in the places of godly worship, and Esau wanted to get out with the idol worship. So before we get back into Chassidus, you have to plug it in, Ellen. Okay. So I'm going to quote Maimonides. Maimonides didn't only write about Jewish law. Are you familiar with the work Shmoina Parakim, the 8 chapters? So before Pirkei Avot, the Maimonides writes a very, very good, incredible read. It's not complicated. It's a nice, easy read. Talks about human tendency, human behavior, how you have to try to, control yourself. It's a very good read. Very, very good read. It's not complicated at all. But I really, really, it's not great, not terribly philosophical and up there. It should be mandatory reading for every person. It's called Shmoina Parakim. I have it here if anybody wants to steal the book. So, I would say borrow, but usually they don't come back. So the Rambam says, this is text 9a, he says the philosophers have a whole argument, right? A whole discussion. There are two types of personalities. There are people who are good and important, but who crave bad things. And then there are pious people who don't crave bad things, and what motivates them is their good inclination, and they perform good deeds. Why do they perform good deeds? Because that's their tendency. So obviously comes the question on the screen of the two people in text 9a. Who's more virtuous? Let's take a vote. The one who overcomes his base tendencies and desires, or the one who naturally is a good guy?
The
First. You said it first. Ellen?
The
second. There you go. Yeah. She said day and night. You guys are happily married. So the Rambam continues. This is text number 9. Rambam says that most philosophers would agree with Ellen that the pious are more praiseworthy and perfect than those that reign in their passions. The latter might be identical in behavior, but they are lower. Yet, the Rambam continues in the second paragraph. Maimonides continues, when we examine the words of our sages, we find that those who are tempted to sin are more praiseworthy and complete than those with no sinful cravings. There's a story with the Tzemach Tzedek. A guy walked into the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek was the third Chabad Rebbe, Menachem Mendel of Lubavitch. And he said, Rebbe, I have zero desire to learn. What should I do? Tzemach Tzedek, I have a different problem. I do have a desire to learn. So all my learning is worth nothing. Every line that you learn, it's a great thing. For me, I love it. I'm not doing anything. Right? So, there's another story that I think the Frierdiker Rebbe or the Alter Rebbe was talking to us, a chassid of his, who was a simpleton, not very learned, and he says, I'm jealous of you, he tells him. This guy says, you're jealous of me? But I'm a nobody. He says, no, but let me explain. You go out into the marketplace and you deal with, common folk, people, regular people. And then when in the middle of business, you drop a line of Torah, you drop a thought on the Parsha, you have no idea how much excitement and nachas it causes up there, because you're bringing godliness down into the most common interactions. Me, I'm stuck in the yeshiva, I'm stuck in the shul the whole day. What impact am I having over here? But you're having a much greater impact. So based on the teachings of Chassidus, the person, and this is reflected in the saying of Pirkei Avot. So who is a strong person? Ezehu Gibor. You guys know the end of the line? Who is a mighty person? Eva, you know the end of the line? Do you know the end of that line? Who is a mighty person? Someone who conquers his inclination. Inclination. Hakoyevesh is Yitzre. Yes, someone who's not born with these. That's why another line from the famous line from the rabbis, it says, "V'makim shebali tshuva oimdim," in a place where the penitent man stands. Afilu tzaddik and gemurim eni yichol lamed. Even a holy, completely righteous person cannot stand. Why? Because the righteous person is motivated by his love for God. He's never tasted sin. He's never tasted a hamburger. He's never tasted Red Lobster, right? Whatever it is, right? He doesn't. He goes to shul every Shabbos. He doesn't know what it means not to go to shul. But imagine to have a guy, right, who's used to watching the hurricanes, right, and he's used to paying $6, $8 at the stadium for a hot dog. Then instead he goes to the kosher stand, and it's $18 for a hot dog. He says, "What did I get myself into?" Right? I'll actually tell you a story. He's come up in a bunch of classes, and I think I've told the story before. There was the professor, his name was Velvel Green. He was subcontractor for NASA, about working biology and space and Mars. And Rabbi Moshe Feller, it was the Rebbe Shliach in Minneapolis, got in touch with him, and slowly but surely got close, and he started to become more observant, and he decided to take on certain mitzvahs. I don't know if kosher was there yet, so he had to fly for a conference. So Rabbi Feller said, "Do me a favor, make sure you order kosher food." So they order the kosher food. He gets on the plane, and they don't have the kosher food. Very sorry, and they don't have other food, and he's starving, and he's grumbling. He said, "What I listened to this damn rabbi with his idiotic ideas of kosher and everything else." So he was so angry. He got to the airport. He walked up to the stand, and he said, he ordered a hot dog. He's gonna eat it. He called Rabbi Feller and he said, "Rabbi Feller, I just want you to know what I'm about to do. Because of you, I'm starving on a flight. So because of you, I'm about to have a hot dog, right now. So just because of your crazy ideas." So Rabbi Feller says, "You want to know what Judaism is about? Judaism is about right now, but saying no to the hot dog. You're hungry, but because God doesn't want you to have the hot dog, you don't have the hot dog." And Professor Velvel Green realized he was right, so he took the hot dog, threw it in the garbage, and he never ate not kosher, right? So this is the difference. Chassidus talks about that it's our ability to overcome. It's our ability to. Yes, it's true. We have sometimes base or lowly desires, impulses, but it's our idea to overcome. Not only that, you might argue, and this is a strong argument put forth in the past 20, 30, 40 years, maybe even longer, that if this is the way I feel, and this is what makes me happy, then I'm entitled to act that way. Torah says no. Torah says yes. Torah doesn't deny that you have a tendency. Torah doesn't deny that you have an enjoyment. Torah says if Hashem asks you not to do it, then and even although you want to, you have the ability to say no. Like Nancy Reagan, just say no. Right? So, text number 10, the Rebbe Rashab, keep hitting the wrong button. The Rebbe Rashab, quoting the famous line in the Gemara, he says, the rabbi said, "Eina Kadosh Baruch Hu ba b'trini imriyasav." God makes no unfair demands of His creation. So that means whatever God asks us to do, whether in Torah or in mitzvahs, that means God not believes in us. He knows that we can do it. So now we can get back a little bit to our we can get back to our story of Yaakov and Esau. That we thought, I told you this short class today. So we thought Esau's a bad guy and predestined. Even Moshe, by the way, before we finish up, even Moshe, there are a few times that Moshe didn't understand that after the sin of the golden calf, what did God ask for the Jewish people for an atonement? He said to give a half shekel. Everyone had to give a half shekel. That was after the sin of the golden calf. Moshe said, how does one going to connect to the other? Then the second one, when Hashem said, I want the Jewish people to give me the fill of offerings, fill me up with offerings. Moshe said, but it can't satiate an infinite appetite. God said infinite. And also when Hashem instructed Moshe to build the Beis HaMikdash, the Mishkan, sanctuary. So how can we build a sanctuary? God tells Moshe all three of these instances. So I'm not asking you based on my ability. I'm asking you based on your ability. Oh, there you go. So the question is about Esau, right? Rivka gives birth to this very bad guy. So the question I have for you guys to ask is: was Esau bad straight out of the womb?
I don't know. It's nurture versus nature.
No, nature, not nurture. Forget nature. Nurture. Straight out of the womb is no time for nurture. Talk about nature.
Saying he was evil out, come right straight out of the womb. It was, he would kick when she passed the statues. Right?
Yeah, but does kicking when you pass statues, does that mean the person is bad or has a propensity for bad? Because there's a difference.
Maybe he's agitated because he's angry that they're in the presence.
That's a good one. Never heard that one. That's a good one.
Right.
So, yeah.
Nature versus nurture.
No, but this is no nurture yet. He's in the womb. So the way Chassidus understand
I would say if he's in the womb, he's in good shape because it's her womb.
It's Rivka, right? You can't get better than Rivka.
Yeah.
So Chassidus understands Esau like this. Esau was a person, who was born with a tremendous Yetzer Hara. Esau wasn't born bad. In fact, Esau doesn't turn bad until Avram dies. They're 15 years old. Esau doesn't commit his first crime until he's 15, or his first murder. He doesn't commit his first murder until he's 15. Maybe he committed other crimes, but he didn't commit his first murder until 15. The point is like this. No one is born evil. Yeah, it's true that a person might be born with tendencies that are selfish and hurtful to other people. But going back to what text number 10 said, if God gave a person this tendency towards this behavior, He also gave him the ability to overcome it. And it's more than that, because then you could just say, okay, so he spends his whole life overcoming a negative trait. No. Esau didn't only have propensity for bad. Esau also had this tremendous potential for good. This explains why Yitzchak wants to bless Esau. If you just read the text, you think Yitzchak was blind and old and dumb or oblivious. That's why he wanted to blame. That's why he wanted to bless Yitzchak. Bless Esau. Sorry, but that story doesn't make sense. If Esau commits his first murder at 15, and Yitzchak is 75, Yitzchak is 60 when the boys are born. And the story with the blessings happened when Yitzchak is 123. Yitzchak was alive, and he knew exactly who Esau was.
What kind of influence did Abraham have on Esau? What kind of relationship did they
Good.
have?
Had a great
There were two
relationship.
different personalities. I think I just read this morning.
Yeah,
that
very much.
Abraham was more of an outgoing person, and Yitzchak was more introspective.
Avram and Yitzchak looked alike, drastically different personalities. So Esau was a extreme example of Yitzchak. Yaakov is a perfect balance between Avram and Yitzchak. And that's why we're Bnei Yisrael, because he's the perfect balance. That's why Avram was an extreme example of chesed, of kindness. And extreme kindness isn't good, so he has Ishmael. Yitzchak is extreme example of discipline. Extreme discipline isn't good either. That's why he has Esau. Yaakov is a perfect balance, so all his kids are perfect.
Interesting.
That's what it is. So Esau is not a bad guy. Yeah, he's born with these tendencies. He's born with these inclinations to behaviors that God says are not suitable, are not good. Does that mean you have to do it? I think this is a very appropriate topic for modern times. So let's get controversial for a second. Let's say a person has homosexual desires, and let's say he's real, right? We're not right. He's 100% true. What do we tell the person?
What do you tell the person?
Yeah. Do we tell the person that, hey, this is how you feel, do what you want? You can't do anything about it. Torah doesn't say that. Torah says, I understand that you have it, and the Torah acknowledges, Torah affirms that yes, a person has this. It could be a kleptomaniac, a arson, a person that wants to kill, whatever the propensity to negative behavior is, right? Well, let's say a person loves cheeseburgers, whatever it is, right?
So it's an accepted problem, but the whole point is to overcome it.
Oh, and not only that, not only can you overcome it, you can channel that personality trait into doing something good. And that's why Yitzchak wants to bless Esau. Yitzchak wants to bless Esau because he says,
so he wasn't fooled at all.
No, Esau has greater potential than Yaakov. Because Yaakov is a sheep. Esau is a bull.
His initiative.
Esau is a bull.
And a leader.
Yeah. So if we can corral the bull's strength, you know what we can accomplish? Tremendous things. But Rivka goes to Yitzchak and says, your idea is great, but you need someone to train the bull. You need someone to corral the bull. You're right that Esau has potential, but just giving Esau all the tools and not having anybody, direct him, that's the problem. So Yaakov's job is to direct and to put walls around Esau. Esau's all over the place. I think I told you this before, that when I was a head counselor in Toronto, we were 3 head counselors together. It was me, Levi, and Yossi, and we were an unbelievable team. Because Levi is very innovative. He would come up with ideas, just spit out all these ideas. Some of them were pie in the sky ideas, and some of them were great ideas. Yossi, he was very good at analyzing the idea. No, we could do that. We're not good at that. The problem with Yossi was he couldn't get off his tachas. He wasn't a doer. Me, I'm a doer. So we worked great as a team because Levi innovated, Yossi analyzed, and I implemented. And they were telling you the summer went off we didn't step on each other's toes. It was amazing. So Esau has all this potential, but he's all over the place. Yaakov's job is to say, "Whoa, Esau, relax. Let's do this, A, B, and C." That's why Yaakov has to act like Esau to get the blessings. This is why he does that. How come Yaakov didn't walk in, or Rivka didn't walk in and tell Yitzchak, say, "Oh, you're crazy? You gotta give the blessings to Esau"? Because in order for Yaakov to direct Esau, he has to talk Esau's language. That's the idea. So who's greater? Not the person who is a goody-goody. It's the person who has these impulses, and is able to corral them. And this is the great story. This is the great, so to speak, tragedy of Esau. Esau is the great potential that hasn't been actualized. That's why when Mashiach comes, we're not going to destroy Edom. By the way, that's why in Judaism we don't have this idea, like in other religions, that we're going to be around and everyone else is going to be gone. Because in other religions, if you believe good, if not, what are you here for, really? Right? That's not. Judaism believes that every single person has a purpose, Jew and Gentile alike. When Mashiach comes, it's about realizing the purpose. So humanity is going to walk hand in hand, Jew and Gentile together, because that's what it's about. And that's what they eradicate Esau, and that's what they eradicate the Arabs either. That's not what Judaism is about. Judaism is about the Palestinians, Arabs, whatever it is, Christians, Hindus, whatever it is, all humanity walking hand in hand. Everyone's going to realize their potential. But how are they going to do it? Through Yaakov. Yaakov is the one that helps the world realize, the Jewish people are the ones that help the world realize their potential. Okay, keep hitting the wrong key points, right? Oh, those we're starting to see how the greatest capacities are for good. And if you're a teacher, by the way, right? The kids are good. If you can take a bad kid, so to speak, wild kid, and turn them around, they can accomplish tremendous things. Key point: some people are born with the capacity to be righteous, and others with the capacity to be wicked. It doesn't. By the way, capacity. Everyone's born with the capacity to be wicked. So some people doesn't interest them. Even a righteous person can shoot a gun, right? That's not right. Everyone has the capacity. This doesn't mean that they'll be that way. They can. Most parents prefer their kids are. I'll tell you another story, right? So when Sarah was a little girl, she didn't sit still. She was bouncing around and she never sat still. We had to keep an eye on her. I have a niece who was about the same age, and she would just sit there quiet. So let's complain to my father. I said, I can't. Look at her. Look at that, that kid. She's sitting there, and her parents can go. And Sarah, if you left her off, she would empty out the drawers. She would roll around. So my father said, "You don't want a kid like that. Sarah's gonna grow up, and you're gonna see. She's gonna give you a lot of nacha. She's gonna be bouncing on, And my father was right. Right? Most parents prefer that children are, lemelach, sheep. But however, where do you get the most nachas from? I get it from the firecrackers. Yeah. The capacity to be wicked comes from resources to overcome temptation. God never asks us to do something we can't deliver. If He challenges us, that means we can do it. This means that a child with the capacity to be wicked has greater inner resources than one to be born righteous. To access and activate these resources, a child it requires a challenge. But once challenged, the innate strengths emerge. That's what every person has to be challenged, has to be pushed. Everyone have a good week. Have a good Thanksgiving.
You too.
And we'll see you, God willing, next week.